A lot of the discussion around commander deck building often revolves around the commander, and this makes sense. It's right there in the name of the format. In specific, how to best utilize your command zone is a big area of discussion, and it's certainly one that I've dabbled in plenty. It's good when you can get more out of a card in your deck that you'll always have access to. However, there's a specific deck building choice I've noticed that results from this goal, and it's one that kind of bothers me. That choice is when a player chooses to take their lovely Synergy Engine commander and turn it into a combo piece. Before I go any further, I should make it clear what I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about a player building a combo deck where the commander is one of the combo pieces. No, if that combo is the deck's primary game plan, that's actually a great way to build a deck. Utilizing the commander in a combo generally makes that combo more compact, which gives additional deck space for interaction, support cards, and alternative game plans. My two best decks involve the commander being used in a combo for this exact reason, and I'd recommend that to anybody who's looking for a powerful starting point for a combo deck. What I'm actually talking about here is a deck where the primary game plan is something other than a combo that is focused around the commander, and a combo that involves the commander is tossed in as an addition to that. On the surface, this doesn't seem like a bad idea. You've already got part of the combo right there, and having that combo might be decent as an alternate win con. This logic works so long as the combo isn't significantly better than the primary game plan, and especially if the combo pieces also fit into that plan. If I'm building a Samut beatdown deck, Combat Celebrant and Sword of Hearth and Home are both great cards for the deck in general, and the fact that they also combo with the haste the commander provides is just an added bonus that can allow for explosive wins on certain board states. Where things become a problem is when the combo in question is one that is out of place and far more powerful than the deck's normal game plan, and that is for a couple reasons. The first is one I've talked about and alluded to before, and this is the lesser of the two issues in my view, the vibes issue. If you build a deck that's mainly doing one thing but has some other much more powerful thing it can draw into 10 to 20% of the time, that's going to lead to some table whiplash. People come into games with expectations of how their opponent's decks are going to function, and this is fundamental to any deck building game that requires skill. Those expectations rely on decks following some sort of logic, and when a deck does a mixture of relatively weak things and wildly powerful things with no rhyme or reason, it's much more difficult for people playing against that deck to conceptualize it and strategize around it. If you're looking for a luck-based game with fantasy aesthetics, this might be a workable situation for you, but on some level it represents a breakdown of how multiplayer strategy games work, which a lot of players might not find enjoyable. This reason actually applies to any situation where stronger and weaker plays coexist, regardless of whether the commander is involved. The other issue with making your commander a combo piece is the much more tangible one, and that's that what you do with your commander will inform how your opponents react to that commander. When I'm playing against a Zaxara deck and I have a spare moment to cast a removal spell, the commander is generally going to be a medium value target. Certainly, the ramp it gives is useful, and the X-Spell ability can be quite good if the Zaxara player has the right setup to utilize it, but there will still be lots of times where I'm mostly comfortable with Zaxara sticking around for a bit. However, according to EDHREC, 46% of Zaxara decks run Freed from the Reel, a card that can produce infinite mana with Zaxara's ramp ability, and that's infinite colored mana in an X-Spells deck. So the game will often end right then and there when that happens. If I know my opponent is among those 46% and I don't want to hold up mana to remove it later, that Zaxara immediately becomes a top priority for removal. If I do remove it and they had a Freed from the Reel in hand, well, that's just good defensive play, but the other 85% of the time, the player probably just had some Hydras and Ramp in hand and has experienced an entirely unnecessary setback in their goofy mid-range deck just because they decided to make their commander part of an infinite combo. This sucks for everybody involved. The Hydra player gets their totally fair magic game plan slowed down, and a different player might get to keep a threatening value engine and pull ahead. As another example, let's talk about Tivit, Seller of Secrets. Now, Tivit is a bit different from Zaxara in that its combo plan is often the primary plan. While I'd estimate the number of real freed Zaxara players who would consider their deck a genuine combo deck is pretty low, Tivit's one-card infinite combo with Time Sieve is the first thing a lot of people think of when they think about the commander. And indeed, we can see 72% of players are running this combo. However, if we dig a bit deeper, we can also see that about 45% of players are playing a Tivit deck that is based around voting. Sorting by inclusion of Brago's representative, we can see that people building this sort of deck are running lots of voting-oriented cards, as well as some flicker and artifact synergies. Seems like a pretty reasonable mid-power deck. Let's say that it's turn 5 or 6, and this sort of Tivit player is casting their commander, and let's also say I'm holding up a counterspell. Well, Tivit is certainly a bit concerning. The card is a strong engine, and him sticking around to get multiple triggers could lead to the Tivit player pulling ahead. However, there are plenty of cases where I'd be fine with Tivit resolving, especially if there are more opposing turns before mine. What if another opponent is pulling ahead and I want a chance at nailing a critical spell of theirs? What if I have a big board I want to protect from potential board wipes? What if I'm holding up a board wipe and have the ability to clear out the Tivit later with counterspell backup anyway? In those cases, I might just let the player have their Tivit and get a bit of mana and card advantage. But wait, I forgot to mention. 63% of voting-oriented Tivit decks run Time Civ. Statistically speaking, no shot that's resolving. Get your one-card infinite combo deck out of here, nerd. Once again, this Tivit player could just be looking to do fun voting things and have a grand experiment in mildly rigged democracy. But, unfortunately for them, they decided that grand experiment in democracy also needed a one-card infinite combo. So, no, I think I'll pass on that one. Thank you very much. This principle is most pronounced with infinite combos, but it also applies to other situations where a card radically changes the nature of what a commander does. Take Atraxa. You can do all sorts of things with the commander, pumping up +1/+1 counters, loyalty counters, charge counters, storage counters, and more, and all of these can work alongside each other just fine. Well, all except for one. The second you throw some poison counters on your opponents, the commander immediately reads, "Each turn I get a poison counter for all your opponents," and their removal choices will reflect that. Oh, you were hoping to do some funny Super Friends things with Atraxa now? No, you're not. Even worse, since poison counters are almost impossible to remove, there's a certain terrifying inevitability that's present. Even if Atraxa isn't in play currently, the fact that she could be in the future will likely serve as enough of a threat to warrant some very focused rounds of attacks. To fully put on my social theorizing hat, a big part of casual EDH is figuring out ways to win that your opponents will allow you to perform the setup for. Examples of this might consist of getting a large land count before casting a massive spell, getting a board of tokens before playing an overrun effect, setting up some synergy pieces before landing a centerpiece card that will allow the deck to surge out of control, and so on. By contrast, poison counter proliferation is about as visible and visceral as setup gets. Your opponents will be kicking and screaming against the lurching inevitability of your game plan, even when it's no stronger on paper than doing a good old-fashioned tokens plus overrun. That's not to say that poison counters are never a valid win plan, but you need to know what you're getting yourself into. At the end of the day, that's the main thing that all of this really comes down to, knowing what kind of magic you want to be playing. If your commander is serving one purpose for your deck, stretching it to fill more roles can be a great way to up your overall efficiency and consistency, but you do need to keep an eye on what exactly those roles are and whether they pose dramatically different threats to your opponents. In my Rada deck, the commander serves two primary purposes, being a mana dork and enabling a couple of powerful lieutenant creatures. This works well because neither of these purposes step on each other's toes. Removing the commander early to cut me on mana isn't a setback to the lieutenant creatures, because I haven't played any yet, and removing the commander as a lieutenant enabler isn't a major step back to mana generation, because having Rada as a mana dork isn't that important past turn 4 anyway. It is also possible to have your commander perform roles that conflict in some way, and having that work out just comes back to, once again, knowing what kind of magic you want to play. In my strongest deck, Malcolm is both a combo piece and a mana engine. This frequently renders him the scariest creature on board, and also means that him eating a removal spell is a pretty major setback. I account for this by running a massive pile of counterspells that I can cast using the treasures Malcolm generates. I know exactly how my opponents are going to be feeling, and I'm prepared to say no if they send their removal spells in the most logical direction. I also made the deck as consistent as possible at getting Time Civ out, because my opponents are going to be bracing for it anyway in how they treat Malcolm, so I may as well make sure the effort I spend defending Malcolm isn't in service of some janky pirate beatdown. When it comes down to it, I'm not trying to give any hard and fast rules here. I'm just trying to make sure that players have their expectations well calibrated. If you're prepared to fight ruthlessly to keep your commander in play, that's great, and I wish you all the luck in the world in that battle. On the contrary, if you're just here for a good time and don't want to fight that battle, don't build your deck in a way that gives other people extra reasons to kill your stuff.